don't be afraid to ask questions. If the guy that you're buying it from gets pissy about you asking a question about the service of this machine or how long he's had it, that's suspect to me. Hey there folks, this is Josh, Stoney Ridge Farmer. Welcome back to another beautiful day here on the Stoney Ridge Farm. Today we're going to be talking about Skiddy Bop, our little skid loader. We're going to walk you through and talk you through what you need to know if you're considering purchasing a skid steer, skid loader, bobcat, compact loader, compact track loader, whatever you want to call it. We're going to walk you through what you need to know to save yourself time, heartache, and money if you're considering purchasing a skid loader for your property or your business.
I ain't afraid of work, I ain't afraid of play, I ain't afraid to get the job done, to do it my own damn way. I ain't afraid of life, times like this. If you mess with my freedom, I'll tell you just what you can kiss.
Folks, welcome to the Stoney Ridge Farm. If this is your first time here, please jump in, pound that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you back here. We've got a great amount of information to feed you with a fire hose with today. So we've got our little Skiddy Bop skid steer. This is our John Deere 250 skid steer. It's around 61 to 64 horsepower. Great little machine. It's got a John Deere engine, turbo diesel engine in it. I've got it sitting out here beside the TYM T1104 tractor because I want to talk to you a little bit about farm tractor versus skid steer. So this is a 110 horsepower TYM T1104, a great machine, a cab machine, a great machine for material handling like hay bales, stuff like that, pallets, a little bit of dirt moving, but it's not an earth moving piece of equipment like this right here. So the skid steer, the main reason you'd want to purchase something like this is for earth moving type jobs. So if you're building roads on your property, if you're grading out stuff on your property, if you've got a new house going onto your property, if you're constantly moving rock and gravel and dirt, this is the machine that you need. And it's my opinion that every farm needs a skid loader like this. It's a very, very handy machine to have. Now, let's talk about wheels versus tracks. Track skid loaders are gonna go more places than wheeled skid loaders. This thing with just the wheels on it without our grouser tracks on it is absolutely worthless in the wet. So if you get on wet ground, wet grass, mud, whatever, it will mire up almost instantly. So I will encourage you, if you're considering the purchase of a wheeled loader like this, to get a set of grouser tracks for it. We've got a set of tracks that go on the winter time, they come off in the summertime. They're a little bit harder on the land and a little bit harder on the driveway, so I take them off in the summertime, but whenever it starts getting wet in the wet season, those tracks go back on because that machine is almost completely useless in the mud. It really, really is. Well, let's walk around the machine and we'll talk to you about a few things you need to look for when you're buying a used skid loader. So first things first, we're gonna sit in the cab of this machine. As you're looking around in the cab of your machine, you're looking for hydraulic leaks. You're looking for signs and symptoms of leaks. You're looking for cleanliness, whether the seat is all torn up, what are the hours on the machine, and there's all sorts of stuff up here. Is the headliner falling off? Is it rusted? Is it well taken care of by the previous owner? Or does it look like, holy crap, like a tornado came through here? Is the guy too lazy to clean the machine to sell it? If he's too lazy to clean the machine to sell it to you, odds are he's been way too lazy to do the maintenance and keep this machine up, okay? So you wanna reach up and you wanna turn your key on, you wanna make sure you can hear the fuel pump thumping away. You wanna hit that key and that thing should fire up just like that. But before you do so, walk around the back and check and see if this engine has been started prior to your arrival. Whenever you're going to go look at any piece of equipment, I don't even care if it's a truck, car, or whatever, ask them not to start the machine prior to you arriving to look at it. Now, we'll hit the start button here, and I've already bought this machine. I'll talk to you about the price at the end of the video. Fires right up, purrs like a kitten, absolutely fantastic. You want to give it just a few seconds to warm up a little bit, get that oil pumping. I'd say about a minute and a half. Then after that minute and a half, go on and give it full throttle. Feel that throttle. Is it smooth? Does it sputter? Do you hear valves rattling? Look back. take a buddy with you, guys. Take a buddy with you to look and see if when you first start it up, a big old cloud of smoke comes out. If you've got issues with smoke, you might have issues with rings, valve guides, or could be all sorts of problems with this machine. Odds are, if somebody is buying and or selling a skid loader, they either bought a nicer one, like they went from a wheeled machine to a track machine or to a newer model, or they're selling their problem to you guys. So know that you are gonna run into some maintenance items whenever you're buying a used skid steer, and these machines break. They just break. A lot of these machines are really, really overworked, hard, beat to snot machines. Now, let's talk about hours. Don't be afraid of 2,500 hours, 3,000 hours, whatever. Don't be afraid of them. This machine right here is a John Deere machine, and I got the VIN number, called the John Deere place, and asked them about service and or warranty repairs that were made to this machine. And I found out that the cluster up here had been replaced. In other words, the gauge cluster. When you start the machine up, you want to make sure that all of your gauges are working just fine. Everything's working good. Your brake works good. Your lights work good. You want to make sure, because all these are negotiating factors. If you start this thing up and you can't see the oil pressure or the temperature, you've got a problem, and the previous owner has a problem, and it's something that you need to address. So think about the money that you're going to have to spend on this critter. And we haven't even gotten out of the cab yet, okay? This is an older machine. Right now it's 2021. This machine is a 1999 machine. It's a 22-year-old machine. When do your hoses start to fail? They start to fail at about 15 to 20 years, something like that. So it's important to know whether your machine was garage kept or shed kept, or whether it's sat outside. If it's sat outside and it's 15 to 20 years old, odds are it's gonna have some rust on it. It's gonna have some rust issues. Are rust issues a huge deal? Are they a deal breaker? I don't think so, especially if you live in a northern climate where you're working with a lot of salt and stuff like this. A lot of these are used for pushing snow in parking lots and stuff like that. So it's food for thought. Let's go around the outside and the hydraulics. I'm gonna go ahead and raise up the bucket, and we'll talk a little bit about the bucket and what you're looking for with play in the bucket. As we start this machine up, this one takes a seat belt. The seat belt wraps around you. If it's a Bobcat machine, it may have a bar that goes over you to secure you into the seat, okay? Seat belt has to be engaged in order to move any of this stuff, and the brake has to be disengaged. This is a hand and foot control, meaning this drives that way, drives these wheels on this side. This one drives the wheels on this side. There's a little lever right here that runs your secondary hydraulics, which are right here. This machine will not run a brush cutter. It does not have a push button to engage those secondary hydraulics. So in other words, this will only run a grapple or something like an auger. It will not run a brush cutter, and it's something that you need to know. We're gonna raise up. Once we rev up, does the machine have a self-leveling bucket? Does it have a self-leveling bucket? This one does. That's a plus, guys. That's a definite plus. We're gonna bring the bucket down. This is hand and foot controls. My right foot tips the bucket down. My left foot brings the bucket down, okay? Very cool. So we're gonna bring this down, and we're gonna do a little play test. What we're doing here is bouncing the bucket just a little bit to see if it has any play in it. The next test we're gonna do is what I call a hydraulic leak down test. I'm gonna put the bucket on the ground and I'm gonna raise the machine up. Watch. What we're checking for right now is whether the hydraulics settle on this machine, whether the machine has a hydraulic leak or some blow-by in the hydraulic pump. You can see the front wheels are off the ground right here, so as we're walking around this machine, checking it out, we're watching this to see if it settles. A little bit of settling is normal, it's not bad, but if it settles down and you see hydraulic fluid leaking out from under this machine, then you've got a problem. I encourage you to take a piece of cardboard with you. Take a piece of cardboard once you get the machine up and running to operating temperature, slide that piece of cardboard up underneath there and do this test. See if we get hydraulic leaks, oil leaks, anything like that. So let's walk around the machine while we've got her sitting up like this. And when I bought this machine, it would not sit up like this, guys. It would slowly leak down. So it had hydraulic issues that I didn't know about. So you're learning from my mistakes right here. Stupid should hurt. Stupid cost money, that's for sure. This is one of our farm shirts, by the way. You can find it on StoneyRidgeFarmer.com. I'll post a link in the video description. So look at your tires when you're buying your tires. I had to buy 4 new tires for this. It cost around $600 to $800 to replace the tires on this machine. Again, it didn't have tracks when I got it. I bought tracks. I think the tracks were around $1,800. This came with a tooth bucket. That's all it came with. This is a smooth bucket off of another tractor that I had, but you want to take a good look at the bucket that comes with the machine and check for wear and see if it's beat all to snot. There are a few things. I'm actually going to take the camera and walk around and talk to you. There are a few things you really need to look at that are telltale signs that your machine has had the snot beat out of it. Play right in here, guys. You get play in here. These cylinders will be beat all to snot. These are in pretty good shape considering the hours on this machine are around 1,200 hours. Now the computer had been replaced in this machine and it only showed 400 hours and it was advertised as only 400 hours. I'm still super happy with the purchase, but beware of false advertising. Our connectors here, they all look good. Everything looks good. This is a low flow or standard flow hydraulic machine. This line had been replaced just before I bought this machine, and I have replaced at least 5 more lines inside this skid loader right here. It's super, super simple to tip the back up. There are 2 bolts right here. So there's a bolt there and another bolt right on the other side, and the whole cab will rotate back and you can access all your hydraulic lines. So it's super simple. Take an impact with you and some big sockets and open up when you go to look at your machine, and you'll see all those hydraulic lines, and you'll also see all the trash in the bottom of the machine. If the previous owner has failed to clean out the machine, it may be hiding some hydraulic leaks. Now, you want to check out all of these little bushings right in here. You want to make sure they have fresh grease in them. These are the wear points on the front of this machine. Like I did a little bit earlier, you want to start it up, raise it up, bring the bucket up and down just a little bit, and shake it from side to side, and check to see how much play you have. Again, tires are very, very important. So they're expensive and they wear. These guys wear. They're constantly spinning. They're constantly moving. You want to be looking for leaks. You want to be looking for leaks underneath. You also want to be looking for stuff like that right there. You can see a little bit of oil has leaked out. You want to look at the exhaust. The exhaust system will tell you a lot. You can see this one's rusted just a little bit. Not a big deal, but we need to think about whether this machine stayed indoors or outdoors. You want to make sure everything is very, very well lubricated. It's not super important that the machine is super clean, but one of the telltale signs of a machine that's had the snot beat out of it is a beat up rear door. And this whole area right here will be beat to crap. You want to look at the machine and make sure it's not beat all to pieces. Now, let's open up the rear. Oh, there we go. Open this guy up. We're looking for trash in the radiator, any chances that anything back here has been beat up or knocked around. We want to look for leaks. We also want to pop right here. We want to check the oil. We want to look and make sure that we don't have grease all over the engine. We want to check our oil and make sure our oil is fairly clean. Now, it is a diesel unit. You want to ask the person that you're buying it from when the last time it was serviced and if it has any service records with it. Now, let's show you a problem that we're having with this machine, and it's caused a little bit of hydraulic fluid to leak down into the cab right here. And that problem is a leaky cylinder. So we've got a little bit of a leaky cylinder right here. You can see this oil, watch. Yeah, we got a little bit of a leaky cylinder. It's not leaking really, really bad, but I know in the future I'm going to have to address this. Could be a leaky cylinder or it could be a leaky line right here. Again, these lines are 22 years old, guys, so you really got to think about that. The machine could look as good as new, but the pipe work and plumbing is 20 years old. Another thing you want to look at on the front of the machine is the skid steer quick attach plates here, okay? Some of them have a solid plate, like the Bobcat will have a solid plate across here, most of them, and some of them will have a plate like this. You want to look at how much this is worn and how beat up it is, okay? If it's beat all to pieces, then this machine has probably been used by several different operators and has been beat to death. A lot of these track loaders or compact loaders like this have been totally beat to death, and the reason they're selling it is because it's no longer making them money. It spends more time down than it spends up and running. Now you can see our loader is still hanging in there, doing very good. Our leak down test, it's been about 15 minutes now and we have had no leak down whatsoever. Take a friend with you and don't be lazy and don't be afraid to ask questions. If the guy that you're buying it from gets pissy about you asking a question about the service of this machine or how long he's had it, that's suspect to me. If he gets all pissy about it, well, what do you expect? It's a 25-year-old machine. No, you just need the honest answer. Just say, I'm not trying to insult you. I just need an honest answer. I just need to know if you have service records. Now, open her up, just like we did before. You're looking for oil and mess. Most of the problems that you're gonna have with these machines is a worn out engine, worn out hydraulic pumps, or hose problems. And that's what this one had, was a ton of hose problems. We'll crank this guy up, raise him on up, and we're gonna go ahead and check the oil in this critter, okay? Now, what we're looking for is not perfectly clean oil, but we are looking to see if we have any kind of froth on the oil. This, again, is a diesel machine, and I just had the oil changed, I'm gonna say probably less than 50 hours ago, so it's absolutely clean as a whistle. You can buy one of these machines and get a smoking deal and find out that your smoking deal was a big smoking piece of crap. So that's something that you really gotta pay attention to, guys. You could check the oil right here, our hydraulic oil. We wanna check it. We wanna make sure it's not extremely discolored, and we also wanna make sure it's within normal operating level right there. And this is clean as a whistle. Again, I keep my equipment serviced and greased. It's the lifeblood of your equipment, guys. And I also keep good records. So even though there were no records with this machine, I started keeping records with it. That way when I get ready to sell it, I know everything that's been done to it and I can hand that guy what he needs. That adds value to the machine. What takes away from the value is aesthetics, whether it's pretty or not. It really does take away from the value. If this thing looked all rusty and crusty and covered in grease, it takes away from the value. If the guy or gal or whoever you're buying it from is too lazy to wash it before they show it to you, again, they're probably too lazy to service it, and it's probably a problem machine. Buy a problem machine, but don't pay through the nose. Again, I paid about $13,500 for this machine. I've had it for right around 2.5 years, and I probably had to replace 4 or 5 hoses on it. Not a real big deal, except for whenever your hoses break, it's always when you need the machine the most. That's a whole lot of talk about a little machine. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing, put it to work, start moving dirt so that we can get our mowing done later with the big TYM. So let's get busy. So guys, you can really see how responsive this machine is. It's very, very tight, it's responsive, it moves fast, it turns fast. It's a really, really good machine, and we lucked up getting a low hour machine with about 1,200 hours on it. Super, super awesome, super happy with the purchase. If I had to buy a new skid loader, I would buy a compact track loader, not a wheeled loader. However, the Grouser Trax is about a $1,500 to $1,800 upgrade, and it's much, much cheaper than buying a track machine. All in all, guys, I'd have to say that I am super, super pleased. Even though I've had to replace several hoses on this machine, I'm super, super pleased with the price that I paid, which is around $13,500. This machine will last me for the next 20 years here on the farm. I'd love to have a track machine, but it really just doesn't make much sense, especially since I'll probably only put 100 to maybe 300 hours per year on this machine. It should last me from now on, as long as I take care of it and keep it maintained. I'll just have to replace hoses as they rot, and if you keep it under a shed, most likely those hoses will hang in there for a very, very long time, 20, 30 years. So that's food for thought. It's pretty much common sense food for thought. Check for leaks, check for oil leaks. Make sure when you start it up, it doesn't smoke like a freight train. Make sure it starts up good. Make sure the brakes work good. Drive it around, take it into circles, cut complete circles with it, back and forth and back and forth. Stress that machine just a little bit so you can tell what's going on. These wheels are driven by a chain mechanism and gear mechanism inside the bottom or the belly of that machine. You need to make sure that they aren't popping and cracking and making all sorts of noise, because if they are, odds are that chain is probably broken before, or it all needs to be replaced, and you're looking at thousands of dollars worth of repair. So you can save yourself thousands by buying a good used skid loader, but you can also spend thousands upon thousands of dollars making a crappy one just a little bit better. So we don't want to spray paint chicken turds around here. We want good stuff to start with. So I'm gonna go ahead and get busy. You guys will get some awesome footage at the end here of me working on the machine. It's been a great machine. That's a little bit of food for thought. Every farm, every property owner needs a skid loader. Now, if you don't want to buy one, you can go rent one for $300 or $400 a day. Probably get all set up, get yourself ready for all your projects, and then go pick it up, go rent it, run the snot out of it. And I encourage you to rent one before you buy one, so you know what to look for and so you know what you're comfortable with. Guys, thanks a lot for joining me here on the Stoney Ridge Farm. I got work to do. We'll see you next time. Please pound the like button. I hope you learned a little bit about how to purchase yourself a nice used skid loader. All right? Woo!
Come on down to the Stoney Ridge. Bring your wife and bring your kids. We're living life pure and sweet. That's the way it's supposed to be, Stoney Ridge. Woo!
Cue the airplane. This is how you buy a used airplane. And when you buy your rural property, be sure you buy it near an airport that trains pilots that don't know how to use the throttle. Stupid, it hurt. Is the camera not focused in close enough? Pretty much. Get you a little bit further in here, buddy. Hey, little buddy. Chickens are coming home to roost, Ricky, baby. Woo!